Yeah, I think my dad really enjoys it. He's been a mechanic his whole life. I think he enjoys the job satisfaction of it when the car's finished and done, but he genuinely just hates cars.
What if everything you thought you knew about Matt Armstrong's YouTube success was only half the story? What if the man quietly working in the background knew secrets about the channel that millions of viewers never heard? And what if one surprising confession from his father changed the way you see every single build video forever? But before we start, kindly subscribe to this channel to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Hit that bell so you never miss a story like this one. For years, people watching Matt Armstrong's channel kept asking the same question behind closed doors. How much of this success actually belongs to Matt, and how much of it quietly belongs to his father, Tony Armstrong? Tony had appeared in video after video. Standing in the workshop. Pointing at engines. Offering advice. Quietly fixing things in the background. And the more the channel grew, the louder the whispers became across the automotive community. Some people believed Tony was doing most of the real technical work while Matt stayed in front of the camera. Others thought that having access to a family garage meant free tools, free space, and basically a shortcut that other creators simply did not have. And a lot of viewers genuinely wondered, would this channel even exist without Tony Armstrong standing behind it? Well, Tony finally decided to speak. And what he admitted changes the entire picture. According to Tony, the work on those early car builds was done by Matt himself. Yes, guidance came from Tony when problems appeared. But the tools stayed in Matt's hands. The responsibility for every job belonged to the person doing the build. Tony described it the way real mentorship actually works. Suggestions were given, mistakes were corrected, and lessons were learned. But nobody took over the work. Nobody removed the difficulty from the process. And when it came to money, Tony was very clear about this. Matt did not receive a free ride through a family business. Even during the years when BMX riding was taking up most of his time and attention, Matt still worked multiple part-time jobs to fund his daily life and his projects. He delivered food. He worked behind a bar. He spent time in automotive retail stores and tuning shops. Parts had to be paid for. Skills had to be earned step by step. The garage was a place to learn, not a place to skip the hard parts. That explanation hit differently once it came out. Because suddenly the journey looked a lot less like a lucky break and a lot more like years of quiet effort that most people simply never saw. The speculation about Tony and Matt's working relationship did not start loudly. According to the information shared, it began quietly in Leicester and then slowly spread across the automotive community until almost everyone seemed to have some kind of opinion about it. People started asking whether the father and son connection gave Matt an unfair advantage that other creators did not have. The concern was simple on the surface. If your father is an experienced mechanic and you have access to his garage, is the competition really fair? Is the success really yours? Those questions kept growing stronger as the channel became more popular. And honestly, that kind of cycle makes sense. Every time success grows, new questions appear. Every time one question gets answered, another one steps in to replace it. That is exactly what happened here. Observers inside the automotive scene talked openly about how expensive car builds could be. And that made the situation look even more suspicious to some people. The assumption was straightforward: Tony's garage meant free resources, and free resources meant the whole thing was easier than it appeared. But the reality, once explained, did not match those assumptions at all. Tony carried decades of experience from working in garages and fixing cars long before online videos even existed. Matt, on the other hand, brought something completely different to the table. Knowledge about content creation, filming, editing, and modern mechanical work came from years of his own practice and trial and error. When both worked together on camera, the result looked natural because each person was handling a completely different side of the job. One side filled gaps the other side simply did not have. That balance explained why the collaboration felt real instead of forced. And once that explanation landed properly, the relationship looked much less like favoritism and much more like two different skill sets working alongside each other. The early restoration projects became one of the biggest talking points among followers of the channel. Some people found it genuinely difficult to believe that a young creator could complete complicated repairs without serious help from someone who had spent decades in the trade. Doubt grew stronger as the builds became more complex. How would someone still learning the mechanics of cars produce work at that level without somebody more experienced stepping in and taking over? Tony chose to answer that question directly. He explained that Matt did the actual work on those early cars. The knowledge came from years of watching, listening, and growing up around a garage environment. That kind of background does not show up on a certificate. It builds slowly through observation and repetition until it becomes instinct. When problems showed up, Tony offered advice. But the tools stayed in Matt's hands. That detail is worth pausing on. Guidance is not the same as doing the job for someone. Mentorship is not the same as carrying someone through a task they cannot handle themselves. And the proof was in the videos themselves. Real learning always shows progress. The builds did not start out perfect and stay perfect. They improved over time. Mistakes appeared and then mistakes disappeared. That kind of natural progression is exactly what you would expect from someone genuinely developing a skill, not from someone coasting on borrowed expertise. Later collaborations, like the Ferrari F430 project, also raised questions at first. Some viewers wondered whether those builds meant Tony had simply taken over the technical work completely. But the truth turned out to be much simpler than that. Those projects were joint efforts where both worked side by side, with each person handling different parts of the job. Experience met fresh ideas. And the result came from genuine teamwork rather than one person quietly doing everything while the other stayed in frame. A lot of people who watch Matt Armstrong's build videos notice Tony appearing again and again. And the interesting part is that Tony never looks like someone standing around for the camera. He always seems to have something useful to contribute, something practical to point out, or some small detail to correct that nobody else caught at first. That presence adds a layer to the videos that feels personal rather than technical. And that difference is exactly what makes the content feel less like ordinary repair footage and more like something genuine. During many builds, Tony helps diagnose problems, suggests what to check next, and sometimes explains why a mistake happened in the first place. That involvement changes the entire mood of the workshop. Instead of feeling like a production set, the garage starts to feel like a family space where two people are simply figuring things out together. Matt made a decision early on to keep family members involved in projects, and that decision shaped the atmosphere of the channel in a significant way. When Tony appears on screen, the tone immediately becomes warmer. Conversations happen naturally. Small disagreements come up and then get resolved. Reactions to setbacks are honest. And none of that can be planned or scripted in advance. The dynamic between the two creates moments that a solo creator simply cannot manufacture. When a repair goes wrong, the camera captures Matt's frustration. And then Tony steps in with a calm suggestion that slowly brings the project back on track. Those small exchanges build a kind of authenticity that viewers notice, even if they cannot always explain exactly why they keep coming back. Another important thing worth pointing out is how Tony handles attention. Even though the channel became enormously popular, Tony never behaves like someone chasing recognition. He shows up when needed, contributes what he knows, says what needs to be said, and then quietly steps back. That attitude keeps the focus on the project while still letting the audience feel the importance of the partnership. When someone looks comfortable without trying to be the center of attention, everything around them feels more authentic. Tony's role never looks forced. And that makes every appearance feel natural, rather than staged. The emotional heart of this entire partnership became impossible to ignore during a project in 2025 when Matt decided to rebuild a flood-damaged Aston Martin DBX as a surprise for Tony. That project felt different from the very beginning. Instead of focusing purely on repair work, the whole build carried a sense of deeper meaning behind it. Many people started asking the same question while watching: why choose that particular car? And why make that build so personal? The answer became clear as the video moved forward. The project was not only about fixing a damaged vehicle. It was about showing appreciation for the early support that helped Matt get started long before any large audience existed. Years earlier, Tony had offered tools, advice, and encouragement during a period when nobody was watching and nothing was guaranteed. Now, the situation had completely changed. And the surprise rebuild showed how that support had come full circle. When the finished car finally appeared, the reaction communicated more than any explanation ever could. Over 6 million views gathered on that video. And that number showed how deeply invested people had become in the relationship itself, not just the cars, not just the mechanical work, but the genuine bond between a father and his son. People were not watching for the vehicle alone. They were watching because the connection between Matt and Tony had always felt real. And that one project reminded everyone exactly why the channel became something special in the first place. Toward the end of 2025, things took a very serious turn for Matt and the scale of projects being tackled. One of the biggest moves involved a damaged Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, a machine with only around 60 units ever made in the world. The car originally belonged to an American influencer named Alex Gonzalez. After a serious incident, insurance companies declared it a total loss. The vehicle ended up at auction. And ATT traveled all the way to Miami to inspect what most people would walk away from without a second thought. That decision alone set a new tone. This was not just another rebuild. This was something operating at a completely different level. Sourcing parts for a car that exists in such small numbers became one of the biggest hurdles of the entire project. Each part required deep technical knowledge, strong connections across the automotive world, and significant patience. Nothing could be rushed. Nothing could be guessed. At that level, even one small mistake could cost enormous amounts of time and money. At the same time, another major project entered the picture. Around July, Matt picked up a crashed Ferrari F430 that had previously been used as a rental car. The plan involved tracking down original spare parts to match factory standards, along with installing a Capristo exhaust system, adding a layer of performance and sound tuning that went beyond simply repairing the damage. With complexity building up across multiple projects, Tony's role became more important than ever. Years of garage experience gave Tony a diagnostic instinct that cannot easily be taught or replaced. When unfamiliar systems showed up during a rebuild, Tony provided the foundation needed to break down problems step by step. That kind of support made a measurable difference when working with machines operating at the highest performance levels. Looking ahead, nothing suggested that Tony planned to step back. Updates made it clear that he intended to remain actively involved, especially as projects continued to grow more demanding. The workshop itself had transformed over time from a simple learning space into a place where high-level restorations could genuinely happen. That kind of growth does not arrive by accident. It comes from experience, patience, and a willingness to take on bigger risks with each passing year. At the center of everything sat one key idea: adaptation. Each new project brought new problems, new systems, and new expectations. And instead of avoiding that pressure, both Matt and Tony leaned directly into it. Because at the end of the day, what keeps something like this going is not just passion for cars. It is something deeper. The drive to prove that even the most damaged machines, and the most questioned partnerships, can always find a way back. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.